Listen to me, this is what I'm telling you. I'm telling you to dream your dream because I want you to feel it. I want you to taste it. Stay up. The bigger your dream is, the more effort you're gonna have to put in.
So often people say, I'm not that kind of person. What kind of person? And when did you define yourself?
What power is a sense of understanding yourself. Absolute power corrupts, but absolute powerless corrupts even more.
I want you to know something, that the bigger your dream is, I want you to understand the harder the grind. Luck is for leprechauns and you're not green. I'm not bringing you a fairy tale. What I am telling you is that if you're willing to go beast mode, you can have whatever you want. I'm a living example. You can start from nothing. Start from nothing. You know the story. Start with nothing, high school dropout. Start with nothing, homeless. There are two ways to be successful, right? And I don't subscribe to the first one. That's just natural talent, right? And I just don't believe people who are naturally talented are better than me. I believe effort, and you've heard me say it. Your mama might come from privilege. Your daddy might come from privilege. Your daddy might own a company. You might come from privilege. You might have a father that can give you everything your little heart desires, but you will not outwork me. Why? Because I realize that the bigger the dream, and I need you to see who I have up there. Notice when I said beast mode now, I'm not talking about the lion. When I talk about beast mode now, I'm talking about the ant that's very small, but that can probably lift 100 times his weight. I'm saying that some of you in this room, you might not be a lion yet. Some of you in this room, you might be an ant. You might have small beginnings. You might not have a lot of money. You might not have a lot of resources, but there's no excuse. You said, E.T., I'm not that lion. You might be the ant, and the ant has very little, but he's determined. He's strong. He has a dream and a goal, and he'll do whatever it takes. And I need you to understand that the bigger your dream is, the earlier you're going to have to get up. The longer you're going to have to stay up. The bigger your dream is, the more effort you're going to have to put in. And for those of you who raise your hand and put up 70%, you'll never see it. You'll never see it. For those of you who are 70% beast mode, 30% gazelle, I want to make sure you get it. All right, listen to me. I told you. I want you to think about those goals. I want you to taste them. I want you to internalize it. I'm not asking you to tell me what your goals are because I'm interested in hearing everybody in the room. I couldn't possibly do anything with it. Listen to me, this is what I'm telling you. I'm telling you to dream your dream because I want you to feel it. I want you to taste it. Just like when the weather is changing, you can feel it. I want you to be able to feel when you're getting closer to it and closer to it. But more importantly, I want you to know when you dream your dream that there are other people who are dreaming the exact same dream. When you said to yourself, when the ball comes down, this is what I want to accomplish, you're not the only person that wants to accomplish it. And now I ask you this question: what do you do when 1,000 other people want exactly what you want? What do you do when you're not the only one that wants to make $1 million in your company? You're not the only one that wants to be the president. You're not the only one that wants to be the CEO. What if you're not the only one that wants what you want? What if there are thousands of other people who want what you want? You have to outwork them. You got to outgrind them. You got to get up earlier. You got to stay up later. You've got to execute, and you've got to go from 70.
Everybody has the fear of failure, the fear of something, of the unknown. And the last minute, you don't do it. And then you say, I'm really going to do this. And you do it again and again. After a while, you don't want to disappoint yourself. So you might develop a new identity and say, I'm a procrastinator. Well, once that's who you are, that behavior is going to be consistent. It is that powerful a control system on how we function as human beings. So anything you attach the words I am to over and over again, consistency, with your language, with your emotion, and with an emotional intensity, you'll eventually become it because it becomes a belief, and a belief is self-fulfilling. Whether you think you can, whether you think you can't, you're right. So often people say, I'm not that kind of person. What kind of person? And when did you define yourself? A year ago, 5 years ago, 10 years ago, 20 years, 30 years ago? Most people's a long time ago. And maybe at the end of this conversation, it's time to update your sense of identity. Maybe it's time to expand it. Maybe it's time to take some of the labels off that might limit you. Maybe it's time to look at some that you want to define yourself by as you move for the next 5 or 10 years of your life of growth and expansion. Self-esteem does not come from what people say about you. Self-esteem comes from what you experience about yourself. See, someone can tell you your whole life you're a piece of crap, and a part of you goes, you're full of it, I'm gonna show you. Lots of people have done that. They never bought it. Or someone tell you you're beautiful your whole life. You go, I'm not really beautiful. So what people tell you doesn't matter at all. It's what you stack. It's what you assemble. It's what you create. It's the habit of what you put in your head. There are situations where people get in a certain emotional state. They're scared, they're angry, they're afraid, they're whatever, and they behave a certain way. But if they do that several times, they might say, that's the kind of person I am. And once you do, it's self-fulfilling. Or worse, you know somebody and they were mean to you sometime, and they're harsh, oh, they're such a mean, harsh person. Well, I bet they're different with their child. I bet they're different when they're not under stress. So when we give somebody an identity, we limit our ability to actually reach that soul or that spirit, and we limit our own world. And we put ourselves in a place of judgment of others, and when we're judging others, who's the first person we're going to judge? Ourselves. People get vested in their trauma. People get vested in their pain. If you want to know the largest drug on the planet, it's not, some prescription drug. The biggest, drug on the planet is problems. Because everyone has a deep fear. Everyone. And the deepest fears we have are two. One is that we're not enough. We're not smart enough, young enough, rich enough, pretty enough, funny enough, something enough. And if we're not enough, it's the deepest fear we have, which is we won't be loved. And love is the oxygen of the soul. Because as human beings, if you get in your head, you're dead. Almost all of us can find something to be upset about. That's the nature of the mind. You need something that gets you to move forward. And I feel so bad for the generation today, Z generation, millennials, because so many of them are now talking about not even having children because of the exaggeration of the problems. We've always had problems, and we've always learned to adapt to these challenges, whatever those challenges may be.
Absolute power corrupts, but absolute powerless corrupts even more. The feeling of powerlessness is actually more corrupting than the feeling of having a lot of power. It turns people into being passive aggressive, into playing all kinds of weird games, negative games to get power. You want to feel that you have a degree of control over events in your life, over people, over your future. And that to me is what the power is, right? Some of that involves these games that I mentioned in there. The sense that I'm not helpless in this world. You don't have to use the loss of power. I don't advocate crushing your enemy totally. I hope I don't have any enemies ever that I need to crush ever. You just need to know these things so that when you enter the work world, you're not naive, you're not stupid, you don't make the same kind of mistakes that I made. You spare yourself the pain. You understand the most fundamental thing about human nature. People have egos. You need to be aware of these things so that you don't inadvertently make them feel insecure and suffer the consequences. If you can't control yourself, then you're in a lot of trouble in this world.